Hi, my name is Jacob Young, and today I'm here with Christine Wang and Hayden Hall to discuss the W3C, otherwise known as the World Wide Web Consortium. They have a profound impact on how we interact with the web, and it's time to understand how the W3C functions and its impact on U.S. laws and regulations. In 2016, there was a landmark case in the federal court system. Guillermo Robles, a man with a vision impairment who uses a screen reader, sued Domino's Pizza using the American with Disabilities Act, otherwise known as the ADA. Domino's website at the time did not serve people using screen readers and could be termed inaccessible, leaving a huge legal precedent. So why does this case matter? Well, as we stand, the US has no federal laws concerning the accessibility of websites. The ADA has regulated the physical world to ensure access for all, but in the physical space, but there has been little to no legislation outside of it. As a result, there are no federal guidelines to making the web work for all people. The court's ruling ended up siding in favor with Robles. The ruling was a surprise and essentially extended the ADA Act to cover digital properties. Robles was now able to sue Domino's using the ADA Act. As the ruling suggested, websites must provide now people with vision impairments full and equal enjoyment of its goods and services. The implications are huge. 96% of the web is currently inaccessible, and a majority of major websites too. Since the ruling, lawsuits have exploded, and there are thousands per year. The cost of a lawsuit can come in the millions, and has affected major names such as Target, FedEx, and Expedia. In fact, an Expedia PM mentioned that this could cost up to $100 million to the company.
The point often not discussed is how can companies determine what is accessible versus what is not. Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.0, created by the W3C, became the standard reference point. A set of standards created by a non-governmental institution became almost a point of law. Is this a point of concern? One guy in particular is central to the discussion of the development of web standards, and his name is Tim Berners-Lee. A graduate of Oxford University, Sir Tim invented the World Wide Web in 1989 while at CERN, the European Particle Physics Laboratory. 5 years later, he founded W3C to establish standards and protocols for the growing web. Memberships in W3C is required to impact web standards. Now, the W3C is administered through a couple of core institutions such as MIT. As a result, W3C is comprised of highly technical individuals in computer science. Outside of these institutions, memberships have to be approved by the W3C evangelists. Memberships are quite pricey as well. As you can see, W3C manages the specification across multiple facets of the web. These standards help websites look and feel the same across different types of browsers. These standards are always being updated in order to ensure the longevity of websites as the web develops. It's important to know that the standards are not strictly enforced. The W3C was created to help standardize the experience of websites across different platforms, but the organization inherently has problematic areas. To start off, the organization is self-selected with only the most technically skilled individuals. Moreover, the power of creating standards require large financial backing. Let's examine some of these cases.
With the rise of copyrighted content on the web, the W3C intervened in 2013 to promote a standardized digital rights movement, or DRM, system. Major media companies like Netflix wanted to protect their content across browsers and partnered with the W3C to make browsers have standardized digital rights. Try using PureGrade on Brave browser. The DRM standardization ended up hurting a lot of independent browsers. The DRM system, encrypted media extensions, broke that tradition. With the half-baked API, if you started a browser company and followed all the W3C recommendations, you still wouldn't be able to play back a Netflix video. The internet was a lot like the Wild West before the W3C existed. It argues that its third-party guidelines that help prioritize privacy, security, and accessibility make for higher quality sites on the internet. With an intent on standardizing the experience of websites for all users, regardless of web browsers, W3C argues that it also benefits web development. One of the standards that W3C addresses is accessibility. The idea is that websites should have the same user experience for everyone, including the disabled. Some W3C guidelines that ensure this involve color contrast checking, image text alternatives, and multimedia alternatives. Here is an example of a website that does not follow WCAG standards. You can use a number of tools like the Axe Audit Tool or Wave to discover what is wrong on the websites. UNC's school newspaper has a number of errors that harms people with screen readers, such as missing alt text or duplicate labels. The numbers speak for themselves. 57 million Americans have a disability, including 19.9 million with difficulty lifting or grasping, 8.1 million with vision impairments, and 7.7 million with hearing impairments. There are more ally users than the population of Spain and Canada combined. The W3C has a serious impact on software companies and the tech world as a whole. Companies are becoming increasingly aware due to the ADA of the need to follow guidelines and take accessibility into account early on in the design process. W3C is starting that conversation of making websites inclusive to all. In terms of the impact on software companies, whole teams have been created so that companies properly adhere to these standards. Designers, developers, and QA teams are trained to check the proper protocols, everything from examining tags and attributes to tracking the navigation of a site, are being followed throughout the process and remediating existing errors. So, why do these guidelines matter? As we saw in the Domino's case, companies and developers should be aware of the W3C standards from a legal perspective. But in a greater sense, these guidelines were created and have evolved to make sure that people have equal access to the benefits of the internet that are becoming increasingly necessary in our society. In terms of the future implications W3C guidelines have on the internet, developers need to keep these standards in mind as they design sites. This will allow websites to continue to remain functional, quick to load, and accessible for all users on a variety of browsers as the internet continues to evolve and change over time.